All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome. Another exciting daily vlog. This is daily vlog number 204. Today, I want to talk about discrimination. No. So, I was lying in bed like I do, trying to convince my brain to allow me to leave my bed to do something like this. And as I am off to do, I scrolling YouTube looking for stuff, found a video from a channel called Dramatize Me. This, I believe, is my only experience with this particular channel, so I don't know if this is a rare miss for the channel or if all their stuff is like this. Based on their particular description, I think it's probably a channel that I'm not going to like. Not saying it's a bad channel, I'm saying it's not made for me. But it did inspire me because the video that I watched, just to kind of explain, as far as I can tell, what Dramatize Me tries to do is basically take... I don't know if these are actually real life stories or just based on anecdotes from various people. So it's not like this story that they're portraying has actually happened, but it's meant to shine a light on things that do actually happen by creating a fictionalized story about something like that happening. And I think that's probably what inspired this Viva video. Again, this is me speculating. I don't know if this is how it was. It's just based on my own experiences. It feels like that's kind of what this is. But basically what happens, they take a story, whether it is an actual one-to-one translation of something that actually happened to someone or a conglomeration of stories that people have told them. They write a script and they have professional actors act it out. This particular story was a woman in a wheelchair tries to get into a... They try to pitch it as kind of like a fine dining restaurant, but I have a history in the food service industry. It's not a fine dining restaurant. But I think that's what they were trying to give it the air of, and it was more likely than not, it was the people that wrote and directed this probably had very limited, if not no, experience in a fine dining restaurant and had no idea the outfits that the wait staff would wear or the table settings or anything like that. Which is kind of the issue that I have with the rest of the thing. It's not about the fine dining. But it does kind of highlight the problem that I have. So the woman comes up, she's made a reservation with this place. And the kind of plot of the little short story is, well, they don't like people in wheelchairs, and so they're not going to let her eat at this place. And basically, the idea is supposed to be, it's supposed to highlight the discrimination that disabled people face, which is 100% a real thing. I am disabled, despite the fact that my disability makes it basically impossible for me to interact with other people. Before it got as bad as I did, I personally experienced discrimination. My father experienced discrimination because he's been disabled my entire life. And from, I think, like my high school age on, he was 100% permanently and totally disabled. Not the same way that I did, but yeah. I'm very familiar with discrimination based on disability and disability discrimination in general. And the way it was portrayed in this video, is completely made up. Uh, it was like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. It was insulting just how wrong they got discrimination, just in general. Um, not 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 to mention like specifically disability discrimination, which again happens all the time, but it doesn't happen like this. The all the actors for the wait staff and everything like that, and even one of the customers in the restaurant that decided that they just didn't like disabled people, or in particular people in wheelchairs, they exhibited this like outright hostility and anger. Like they were mad at this person, and they weren't just confrontational. They were angry. They were fiery with them. Never raised their voice, but they're always no, no, no. I don't want to. We don't want you here. Blah, blah, blah. And it was just this very much anger, and that's not what discrimination looks like. And the issue that I have is, again, discrimination happens all the time for a lot of different things. For my particular focus tends to be on disability discrimination because it's the thing that affects me. And that's true of most people that tend to fight against discrimination in general. The one that they're going to fight the hardest for is the one that affects them the most. Whether it affects them personally, it affects someone that they know, or they just have been moved by a particular story about it. That's the thing that they're going to focus on. For me, it's disability rights and discrimination based on disability. And when people discriminate against you specifically for disabilities, and it's different for different discrimination, but for disabilities, people are not angry with disabled people in general. There's not this fiery hatred of disabled people. In general, when you're discriminated against because of your disability, it's a combination of a superiority complex and disgust. And neither of those emotions are shown anywhere. Everyone is just super, super pissed off at this woman for simply existing as a disabled person. And that's not how it works. Do people get mad at disabled people? Absolutely. But it's an escalation. The discrimination always starts off with this superiority and a condescension to them, and or disgust. We don't like you. We think you're gross. We don't want that in front of us. We don't want to be reminded that there are people like you that exist. But it's always from this this level of condescension and this level of, oh, poor baby, aren't you just horrible? You know what? I don't want to have to deal with you, so you need to go away. Anger comes much later when they are confronted with their condescension or their bigotry. And then again, it's not so much that they are angry at the disabled person. They are angry at the idea that somehow this lesser being could call them out for anything. It's an indignation style response. How dare you? I'm not a bigot. How dare someone so disgusting and so lowborn and so beneath me even attempt to correct my behavior? I'm better than you. Remember that. Know your place. That's what discrimination against a disability looks like. And it's really, really common. It's significantly more common than anyone I know, anyone I've spoken to that's never experienced it directly are always absolutely shocked when it happens. And anyone with a disability that experiences it has the exact same reaction, which is, oh no, this is normal. Oh no, this happens a lot. Is it a constant thing? Absolutely not. And it has gotten better over the years as education has happened. But the biggest issue a lot of times that happens is people think discrimination looks like this video. these people saying mean things and yelling at disabled people. And yes, that does happen from time to time. It's remarkably rare. What real discrimination is this condescension, this, listen, I will kid you not. In the video, basically what happens, woman comes up, she goes, yes, I have a reservation, and the maitre d' standing there going, you can't come in here. She's like, huh? You can't come in here. But I have a reservation. Can you check the reservations under the name White? Goes, finds the reservation. You can't come in here. Can I ask why? You can't come in here. And he's just getting more and more angry. It's not how it works. Then they go, the woman goes, can I speak to your manager? A woman comes over. You can't come in here. Again, they're immediately angry at this woman. You can't come in here. I have a reservation. You can't come in here. Is it because I'm in a wheelchair? Another thing doesn't happen. In general, people with disabilities are not going to quote unquote, pull the disabled card like is extremely common with things like, for example, I have seen this in my own life. I have seen it many, many other times. The phrase is pulling the race card. This is not meant to say that racism is blown out of... No, that's not that. I'm saying I have personally seen this happen. Are you doing this because I am insert race here? Seen this happen. I've seen this happen in front of me when I was in line for Popeye's chicken. Okay? It's not something that disabled people do quickly. I have seen people go, are you doing this because I'm disabled? Are you doing this because of this? The one exception to that that I have seen happen is if you have a service animal. It is very, very... people with service animals are very, very quick because generally it's because of their service animal. They go, are you trying to say that I can't bring my service animal in? You have a problem with service animals? Because that's a blatantly illegal thing to do. So anyway, woman goes, is it because I'm in a wheelchair? Which again, I thought was very, very bizarre because of all the discrimination that I've seen people with disabilities face. I don't think I've ever seen someone told that we don't serve people in wheelchairs. What is significantly more common is you have a place that is not wheelchair accessible. And the discrimination comes in the idea of, hey, I'd like to eat here, but you guys don't seem to have any wheelchair ramps. Where are your wheelchair ramps? Well, we're not required to have them because our building was grandfathered. And I say, okay, well, how am I going to get into that? Unfortunately, ma'am, there's nothing that I can do. It is not our business to help customers into this as a store. It would open us up to liability. That's an extremely common way to discriminate against someone with a wheelchair, and it does happen a remarkable amount. Never in my life have I seen someone like, we don't serve wheelers here. Monumentally stupid thing. I've never seen it before, but that's what they're going with. And then they do something that is somewhat true. The woman, because she doesn't want to say, no, we don't serve wheelers in here. She goes, well, we require, and you can see her kind of just glancing around. You're not in the dress code. We require all women to wear high heels, which not a thing that happens. In the instance that you are going to be discriminated against as someone with a disability, person is discriminating against you doesn't have to grasp for straws to find the way that they're going to justify their discrimination, because they've done a lot. The way that this stuff becomes so commonplace is not because you just get a random bigot into a place of power. It's because nobody calls it out, and it just becomes normalized that everyone just kind of accepts this is how it works. And so they would not, in any way, shape, or form, they never would have sat there going, you don't have the right shoes on. There, now I'm justified in my bigotry. No, without dropping a hat, they would have gone, well, we have a dress code. And our dress code does not allow for sneakers or streetwear inside the building. And unfortunately, that's what you're wearing. So fortunately, we cannot seat you today. Thank you very much. That's how it goes. And again, the emotion behind it is always, isn't that adorable? You think you're good enough to come in here. Well, no, you're not. And this is going to be how I show you how unworthy you are to be in my restaurant. So go away, shoo, go in. And then they do something that, again, is very, very common, but they do it in the exact wrong way. They goes, you know what? There is a food truck outside that has the greatest hot dogs and plenty of sitting space. You should go there too. But they don't do it in that condescending, you know, there's a really great place. Like they're talking to a 4-year-old because that's how people treat anyone that has any sort of disability. No, she goes, there's a food truck out there that has great hot dogs and they've got lots of, I mean, basically she is, the manager character is a bad bully from a like 90s coming of age film, which, by the way, those people don't exist either. And so this woman in the wheelchair goes out, just finds a random woman. Another thing that seems completely implausible. She actually goes out and finds a random woman and buys her shoes off of her, as opposed to just, again, a high-end restaurant like this is not going to be in the middle of nowhere. More likely than not, there's going to be lots of high-end places you could just go in and buy some shoes. And the likelihood of you just wandering around and not only finding a woman that has shoes that are your size, but also that is willing to just sell you the shoes off her feet, mind-numbingly stupid. But that's how they do this, because they need to progress the plot to allow these people to discriminate against her more. So she gets the right shoes. And again, had this been a real situation, the shoes would not have been enough. The woman in the wheelchair is basically wearing, I think it was a cardigan and not jeans, but kind of casual pants, and she was dressed very, very casually, and she had some kind of sneakers on. So she was dressed very, very casually. Most fine dining restaurants do have dress codes. That's 100% a real thing. Which is, again, one of the reasons why this idea, well, you're not wearing the right shoes. Wouldn't have done that. They immediately would have gone, well, we have a dress code, and unfortunately you are not up to our dress code. And then when the customer goes, well, what's the dress code? Well, for men, it's black tie, and for women, it's considered cocktail attire. Because those terms are generalized enough that they can kind of wiggle their way around and use it to discriminate against anyone that they want. But they are defined enough that they can claim that, no, that's a very simple thing. Cocktail attire for women is a thing. It's generally a dress and heels and stuff like that. So again, tons of stuff like this would never ever happen, but this is how it is. So she is finally able to come in. And when she sits down, she goes, I would like this soup. And the waiter just goes, nope. Okay, I'll have the gumbo then. Nope. Okay, I will have, and just goes, no. Again, this would never happen. First of all, we have a random waiter that is now angry at the person in the wheelchair. Doesn't make sense. Bigotry is common in large samples, but the likelihood of an entire restaurant, like every single person in the restaurant, having this strange anger about seeing a woman in a wheelchair, it's just not a thing. Yeah, a lot of people that work together are going to have similar mindsets, but the idea that everyone is just going to be vehemently angry, and again, that's the thing that you always see, that they're just angry. They're angry that this woman exists. They're just mad at her. That's not what discrimination looks like. So she goes, well, what is that man having? He goes, he's having this. He goes, okay, I will have that then. Fine, they can't claim that they don't have that anymore because they just served it to someone else. And she goes, oh, wait a minute. Does that have nuts? Yes. Well, I have an allergy to nuts. What do you have that doesn't have nuts? Nothing. Okay, then make me a nutless portion of that. We can't do that. I will bring you a fork and you can take the nuts out yourself. Again, something that is never going to happen in a restaurant, ever. The main reason behind, let's say this is a real thing, that these people just have this vehement anger at someone being wheelchair bound. Okay, doesn't exist, but let's pretend it does. In a restaurant, you don't fuck with food allergies because you can kill someone. Especially if they say the words nut allergy. Like, if someone says, oh, I have a gluten intolerance, they might get gassy. Someone says, I have a nut allergy, they could die in your restaurant. And it's not a pleasant thing to experience. It is watching someone suffocate due to their esophagus closing off because of anaphylaxis is not pretty. It's a remarkably horrible thing to see. There isn't a restaurant in the world that someone would say, oh, I have a nut allergy, and their response would be, I will give you a fork and you can pick them out yourself, because you are just asking, bare minimum, you are asking for a lawsuit. And let's say that in whatever country this was, because the accents they were using, it's all done in English, but the accents, I couldn't place it. It sounded almost maybe like Icelandic. And I'm not completely familiar with disability laws and things in Iceland or really any of the Nordic countries. I don't know if they have those protections that are there. I would assume they do, but I simply don't know. So maybe it is 100% legal to discriminate against people based on their ambulatory ability. But you don't fuck with food allergies, especially not nut allergies. It is such an amazingly stupid thing. And the next thing that happens, man gets up and decides that he wants to dance. Fine dining restaurants, you don't dance in them. It's just not how it is. If you do have a really, really high-end restaurant that does have like live music or offers dancing, there's an actual dance floor that they would have. They would never ever have someone dancing around the other guests. It's just not something that would ever happen in any restaurant. It's a monumentally stupid thing to do. Because first of all, you have servers that have to use those little pathways to get through with hot food and sharp objects and all that. And second of all, it's going to ruin someone else's dinner. Like, having someone dancing next to you, even if they're a phenomenal dancer, is going to ruin someone's dinner. But sure enough, this guy gets up and he trips over this woman's wheelchair, which I was watching like a recap of the episode, so they cut out some portions of it. I don't know what happened, but apparently she went from her wheelchair into a regular chair and just left her wheelchair in the middle of the aisle. Again, if you're in a wheelchair, it's actually not uncommon to not want to have to eat your dinner in your wheelchair. And you want to kind of sit and feel basically like everybody else at the table. So it's not an uncommon thing for someone in a wheelchair to either have someone assist them into getting into the chair, or a lot of times, because people in wheelchairs have to exist outside of them, a lot of people just, I guess, don't realize that when you're in a wheelchair, you're not like fused to it. Like, you sleep in a normal bed, you go to the bathroom, you do a lot of things out of the wheelchair, and most wheelchair users are very, very good at getting themselves in and out of wheelchairs. So that was the thing that threw me off, the fact that she's sitting in a wheelchair. The thing that threw me off is that her wheelchair is just sitting in the middle of the aisle, completely put together. Most wheelchairs, unless you have like a motorized wheelchair or something like this, something really, really expensive, most wheelchairs have the ability to collapse or go in some way, make them easier to maneuver and put into a spot when someone is not physically inside of them. And generally, what happens in a restaurant is if someone in a wheelchair decides that they do not want to eat their meal in their wheelchair and they want to sit in a normal chair, the wheelchair will be moved. You would never leave a wheelchair in the middle of the walkway for all the servers. It's a monumentally stupid thing. Absolute worst case scenario. There's nowhere in the dining room that you can put it. Most restaurants would go, hey, why don't you have me, if you'd like, we can just keep your wheelchair, over here, or we can keep it at the server station, or somewhere where it's not going to cause a massive, massive problem for literally everybody in the restaurant. It's not what happens here. They leave it there. And the reason that they leave it there is the person that gets up, the only other person that seems to be eating in this incredibly fancy restaurant, gets out of his chair, starts moving around, trips over the wheelchair, and gets furious. How dare the wheelchair be there and cause me to trip? I hate you. I hate your stupid wheelchair. You shouldn't be here. Again, pure anger. And so what happens is the manager comes over and gives some free shit to the person that got mad because he tripped over someone else's wheelchair, and then tells the wait staff that they have to move the person in the wheelchair to a different table, somewhere in the corner, somewhere away from everybody else. This actually can happen. This is an actual form of discrimination where you have someone that you just don't like. You will put them in like the worst table possible. For one of two reasons. One, you put them in a bad table, like right next to the kitchen or something like that, to encourage them to eat quickly and leave. You make their experience as uncomfortable as physically possible. Two, which is slightly less common but still happens, you put them in a place so that nobody else has to see them. You put them in a far off corner and then basically pretend that they don't exist. So that's what they do. The waiter goes, excuse me, ma'am, we have to move you. This table has been reserved. And she just kind of looks like, yeah, I reserved it. It's like, unfortunately, ma'am, it's been reserved by another person. We have to move you to another table. It's like, but I reserved this particular table. Like, I didn't make a reservation for a table. I mean a reservation for this particular table. I'm very sorry, ma'am, we have to move you. And they move her effectively to a TV tray in a corner. In her wheelchair as well. And the culmination of it is, as they're harassing her still, she rolls her wheelchair back out, stands up, and says, now am I good enough to eat at your restaurant? Gets this kind of righteous indignation. How dare you discriminate against someone in a wheelchair? And then you find out that she is the food critic that they've been expecting this entire time. And what she decided to do to see how the restaurant would treat anyone as she came in pretending to be disabled to see if she could catch them discriminating against disabled people. And that's not how any of this shit works. And it's unbelievably insulting. And the reason that it happens so often and that it's never stopped is because people think that's what discrimination looks like. These overtly hostile, angry people that are just angry and mad that this wheelchair person is here and they shouldn't be here. And that's not what discrimination looks like. Discrimination looks like, God, the actress's name is Imelda Swenton, I think. Give me a second here. Staunton, that's her name. She is, oh my God, she's probably one of the most skilled actresses in the world. However, most Americans know her almost exclusively for, or I guess they might know her now a little bit more because she was in The Queen. She played Queen Elizabeth II. However, most Americans were introduced to her as Dolores Umbridge in the Harry Potter films. And that's what discrimination looks like. Dolores Umbridge is discrimination incarnate, because most people, at least as far as it's concerning disability, most people that discriminate against disabled people have this air of superiority, and that disabled people need to be pitied, and they generally have this kind of hidden disgust. They don't like that someone like that exists, because it is an uncomfortable thing. A lot of people don't realize just how quickly you can go from being perfectly able-bodied to being disabled. Like, it is an unbelievable one car accident, one bad slip, choking on the wrong thing, your air supply is cut off for too long, you get permanent brain damage. And then we can talk about mental disabilities, the majority of the things that I deal with. A lot of this stuff completely outside of your control. The reason that I am disabled is because someone very, very long ago did something truly horrific to me. And my brain never learned to cope with it. And then years and years and years of other bullshit going on as well. I had no control over any of it. And it took me a long time to realize that it wasn't my fault. So people, like, there is this kind of disgust when people see someone with a disability, because in the back of their head, there's that nagging doubt of, oh my God, that I don't want to be reminded that that's something that can happen. Yuck, disgusting, ew, get it away, get it away, get it away, get it away, get it away. That's what discrimination looks like. And because people think discrimination is, we don't serve wheelies here, and not, ma'am, I really don't think this is the best place for you. I think you would probably be a lot more comfortable at this restaurant. They're absolutely fantastic. I know the owner. I can get you a reservation right now. We'll even call you a cab. That's what discrimination looks like. It's this condescension. It is this idea that we're doing this for you to make you feel better. Don't you feel, I know if I was you, I would feel horrible being in public. So I'm going to make it so you don't feel horrible. I'm going to hide you in that table over there so people don't stare at you because you're a freak. That's what discrimination looks like. It's not, nope, we don't serve you. Nope, we don't have any of that. Nope, we don't have any of that. Nope, we don't have any of that. It's not anger. And it just, it really, really upset me, because this is something that happens all the time in Hollywood. Because I have nothing to base this on, especially since I actually know someone that has worked as a writer, and I know that they know what being bullied in high school is like. So I don't know if it's just the people that are in the driver's seat have just never experienced what it's like to be bullied in high school, but things like high school bullies aren't real as far as what you see onto the TV. Like, really good example. It's a movie that came out as this really tiny indie film called Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. In 2017, they tried to reboot the Power Rangers film franchise. And I've talked about it before. I think the biggest problem with the 2017 Power Rangers movie was it was a prequel. The story that they wanted to tell would have been the sequel if this movie hadn't done really poorly in theaters. But anyway, there's a scene in the movie, and the basic plot that you need to understand for this to make sense. The potential Rangers are all juvenile delinquents. That was the first thing that they just didn't understand, is that Power Rangers are very rarely juvenile delinquents. You might have one delinquent in the bunch, but if you look at like the original Power Rangers team, they were all great students. They were all good kids. They were not, like, it was basically like Bulk and Skull became the Power Rangers in this. But they were juvenile delinquents. It's heart of gold. So anyway, they're in this place, they find the power coins, and then they get hit by a car. Not kidding here. Watch the movie. It's actually an enjoyable movie. It's not well written, but it's fun. Um, the power coins have made them superheroes. They've given them hyper reflexes. They make them near invulnerable. You know, they're a bunch of supermen and women and super them. One of the the character's name is Billy Cranston. In the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, he's played by David Yost. David Yost, phenomenal actor. He's now a producer. I believe he works a lot in reality TV, but he's a great dude. He was also a professional gymnast before becoming a ranger. And it is 100% my theory that the reason that they dressed Billy in like long sleeve shirts and overalls and all this baggy stuff is, I'm going to almost guarantee that when David Yost auditioned and was filming all this, he was cut. Like, he was just absolutely ripped because female gymnastics, the whole point of female gymnastics is you need to be very flexible, very small and tiny and compact. That's how you become, like, that's what the normal female gymnastic person does. Male gymnastics are these dudes with unbelievably huge upper bodies because they do nonsense stuff like they go on like rings and then hold themselves out like this. And doing stuff on like the horse. Like, male gymnasts are absolutely ripped. So anyway, the new version of Billy Cranston, I can't remember the actor's name. Let me see if I can look him up real quick, because he was good. What was his name? He was a good actor. R.J. Cyler was the guy. So he played Billy, and the thing with Billy is they had him be on the spectrum in this one. He had some form of autism that isn't really explained anywhere. He was just somewhere on the autism spectrum. It's perfectly fine. I thought it worked really well for the character. But because he's a nerd and he's on the spectrum, he's a bully magnet. And so they do have a couple of bullies. I think they were supposed to be Bulk and Skull. I'm not sure. But these bullies are not high school bullies. Like, again, I was bullied my entire life. All the way from elementary school, all the way through high school. I was bullied constantly. It wasn't until college that I really stopped getting bullied. And the only reason that it didn't happen was because in college, people are just too busy to bully you. And a lot of times, especially once you get out of your gen ed courses, a lot of times you're just around other people that have the same interest because you're all like the same major. But there's this scene where Billy, for whatever reason, had gotten the two bullies in trouble somehow. And so they stop him at his locker. Middle of school day, they stop at his locker and they grab his wrist like this. This is not an uncommon hold. Basically, if you twist the wrist enough, you actually lock it, and it actually gives you a pretty decent control over someone. Now, it doesn't exactly look like this because I'm doing it to myself, but it is a joint lock that you can use. So he gets there and he grabs the guy's arm like this, and Billy goes, "What are you doing?" And the bully goes, "I'm going to quietly break your wrist." Or arm, I can't remember which one it was. There is not a bully in the world that in the middle of the hall where there are teachers walking around, they're going to go up to someone, get them into a wrist lock and say, "I'm going to quietly break your wrist." Because first of all, you can't quietly break a bone. It's not how it works. I have sprained and pulled muscles and joints. Never broken anything. I was not quiet when that happened. You're not quiet when it happens. The people that I know that have broken bones, you're generally not quiet when it happens. There's no way to quietly break someone's wrist. It's not a thing. Especially as a bully who's using it as intimidation tactic. It's not something that you did to do. Because first of all, there's no way to deny that's what you did. And the entire thing that gives a bully power is they create this kind of plausible deniability, where they go, I wasn't bullying him, I was trying to help him. Fun fact, they did a study and they found out that cool kids in general, the thing that makes them cool is they have two skills. These are the only, if you want to be cool, all the way through high school, anytime, if you want to be part of the cool kids, you only need to know how to do two things. One, read people really well, and two, lie. They found that cool kids in general are able to see what people want and give it to them. So they're just extremely good at reading people and extremely good at manipulation, lying, things like that. That's all you need to be cool. Scientifically, to be cool, good insight score, good deception score, and you are golden. You are the coolest kid in school. Bullies, on the other hand, first of all, there's the idea of the cycle of abuse and everything. The vast majority of bullies were themselves bullied, and that's how they learned to do it. But in order for a bully to be able to continue bullying people, they have to learn how to get away with it. Because bullies that don't get away with it don't stay bullies very long. Because they physically can't. They get in trouble. They get prevented from acting out the way that they need to deal with all the negative emotions that they have. So they learn how to do it in subtle ways. Physical bullying a lot of times takes the place of pushing, shoving, putting people in lockers, swirlies, things like that, because none of those things leave marks. And anytime they're doing something that becomes provable, they don't do it in the middle of school. They do it somewhere with plausible deniability. It happens outside of school. They can just go, I wasn't there. How do I know how they got a black eye? Maybe they fell down or tripped or a million different things, but it didn't happen on school. You have nothing to prove it. That's what an actual bully is. They're psychological. They've done studies on this. Bullies look for people that show signs of submissiveness. They look for easy targets. They look for people that are alone, and they look for people that don't look like they put up a fight. They're looking for easy prey. They're predators. And not predators as in they have that mindset of, I'm looking for the easiest kill that I can make, because going after the most difficult target is just a waste of time, and a lot of times you're going to fail. You want guaranteed success. So yeah, a lot of writers just simply have no idea how to write bullies, and I think a lot of the times it's because either they were bullies and they didn't realize it, or they've never been bullied, and they just assume that this is how bullies must interact. So yeah, I 100% firmly believe that a lot of the writers that write these characters were bullies themselves and didn't realize that they were bullies, and therefore they go, well, what I did was not bullying, therefore this is what bullying must be. And again, going back to the original topic of this, I think that the people that wrote this thought that they were championing disabled rights, and they weren't, because they created a completely fictitious situation that's never going to happen. Anywhere in the world, that's not going to happen. There are so many things that just couldn't have happened put together, that specific situation will never happen in that way. And the director that was directing them gave them the wrong direction, told them to be angry at this person when they should have been condescending. The writers themselves did not write the right dialogue for actual discrimination. And now, when people watch videos like this, it's basically, I think the term is like inspiration porn. It's one of the few ways that disabled people are allowed to exist in Hollywood. There's only two ways that disabled people are allowed to exist in media. One, we have to overcome our disability. If we have a disability, but we're just as good as everyone else, and we're able to be able to do stuff that other people could do despite our disability, then we're allowed to be in Hollywood. We're allowed to be in media because everyone can be inspired by us. The second way disabled people are allowed to exist in Hollywood is to be pitied. Your life is so hard, it's so disgusting. There's so many things that you can't do and they need to be saved by someone else. Or, what's becoming even more common now, is somebody else has to realize that, you know what, I don't have to save them because they're just as good as everybody else. But we still require that acknowledgement from someone else that we're allowed to exist in our horrible, misshapen forms. It's the only two ways that disabled people are allowed to exist in Hollywood and in media in general. This is a kind of a combination of both. One, this is a person that has overcome their disability because they're able to do all of these things and they're able to get around all these discriminatory practices by going out and buying shoes and, getting through all of this stuff. And then we find out they're not actually disabled. They're an able-bodied person that is championing the rights of the disabled. And they're going to stop this evil group from discriminating against wheelchair-bound people because that's a super common thing to get angry about. Now, this is not me saying that people with ambulatory issues, including being wheelchair-bound, are not discriminated against. Again, happens a lot, but it's very rarely. I don't think something like this situation has ever happened in the history of the world. That someone has shown up after they had a reservation. Not just a reservation, they reserved a specific table, which is, again, not something that generally happens in restaurants. Most of the time, your reservation is just for a particular time, and then if you're really, really special, they might reserve a particular table for you because they'll have like a VIP table. Or they may not call it a VIP table, but they might have a particular table that the restaurant themselves tends to reserve for important people because it's the best, it's in the best spot. It's got the best view or something like that. It's close to something. It's right in front of the entertainment or something. Most restaurants will have, those nice tables. They may not be quote unquote VIP tables. But if someone special comes in, they'll have a place that they put them. But yeah, very, very rare that in addition to making a reservation, you also choose your table, because that would require the person making the reservation to already know the restaurant, and that's generally not how it works. Especially since, again, this person was a food critic. So yeah, the likelihood of a food critic coming into a restaurant that they knew well enough to know which table to reserve is bonkers stupid. And if they did know that well, and the staff is somehow complete, because they knew, the staff kept talking about, where's Brooke? Where's Brooke? Where's Brooke? Because the food critic's name was Brooke White. And they never made the connection of a single, because the table she was sitting at was at least a 4-top, if not a 6-top table. So it's a big table for a single person to sit at. That should have been red flag number one of, why are we reserving one of our larger tables for a single dining guest? Second of all, they're going, where is Brooke? Where is Brooke? How do you not, a critic is coming. How do you not know their last name? Their byline is not critiques by Brooke. They are Brooke White, food critic. How do you not put two and two together? Everything about this was so monumentally stupid. And it was, again, it's designed to make people feel like, yeah, we're fighting against bigotry. We're helping the disabled people that can't help themselves. Remarkably enough, the disabled community, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we are remarkably resilient because we have to be, because the world is trying to kill us. I've mentioned this before. I don't know if I've gone into particular details. Canada is euthanizing their disabled population right now. 2023, I think they put out the numbers. They euthanized 13,000 people, and that was I think it was a 20% increase from the year before. And one of the big differences between the year before and that year is they had expanded their medically assisted death program to include a lot of different disabilities. And there are quite a few things. Like there was a woman that had a hypersensitivity to artificial sense, which is a real thing. I have a family member that actually struggles with it. It's not fun. They get migraines whenever they smell artificial scents, and that includes things like scented candles, aftershaves, stuff like that. It's really not fun. But it is a completely manageable condition. This woman, her insurance, for whatever reason, was no longer willing to pay for the medication that she used to do that, but they were willing to pay for her medically assisted death. She's dead now. There was another person who the rent on his apartment was raised. And because he was on disability, he couldn't afford to get to a new place, and they weren't willing. There was no assistance available to him, and so instead of dying on the streets, he decided that it would be better if he died in a hospital bed and had the government pay for him. He's dead now. There are tons of stories like this of disabled people basically being told that, you know how we used to take care of you? We're not going to do that anymore. We're just going to give you the choice of live in agony or die. And then the Canadian government brags about how much money they've saved specifically because of their medically assisted death program. The disabled community in general, we are remarkably resilient, and we have been fighting for our rights for centuries. This idea that we are so poor and disheveled and we can't take care of ourselves and all this stuff isn't true. We're very proud. We fight very, very hard to simply exist in a world that wishes that we didn't. And this idea that somehow a woman pretending to be wheelchair bound somehow, and then writing a really bad review for a restaurant because they got angry at a wheelchair bound person having the gall to eat in their restaurant. Somehow this is championing disabled rights. No, it's mind-numbingly insulting. It's so condescending that somehow we need an able-bodied person to pretend to be disabled just to show the world what real discrimination is. No, we know what real discrimination is. We deal with it every fucking day. You want to champion disabled rights? Talk to disabled people that have actually been discriminated against. Don't pretend to be disabled so you can get into their mindset and know what they're going through. Because I will guarantee you, spending a day in a wheelchair does not make you understand what it's like to be wheelchair bound at all. There's so many things that you will never experience because you have two working legs. It is a completely different experience. You can't, spending a week with a blindfold on will not make you understand what it's like to be blind. Because you know the blindfold is going to come off. It's not the same. You want to champion disabled rights? Talk to disabled people. Find out the stuff that we've had to go through. Give us a voice instead of using your voice to claim that you understand what's going on better than we do. And above all, learn what actual discrimination looks like and don't let it happen. Again, actual discrimination is not people getting really, really angry at disabled people. It's condescension and disgust. It's talking to them like they're children and then saying that this is for your own good. You don't want to be here. Look at this. Look at all, we don't have any ramps here. It's just going to be so difficult for you. Let me find you a restaurant. Let me get you a reservation at another restaurant that is more attuned to someone with your needs. That's discrimination. Not, nope, we don't serve your kind here. It's not what disability discrimination is. Anyway, like I said, I saw the video, and again, it's something that upsets me so much because people think that's what it's like, and the reason that nobody speaks out when actual discrimination is going on is because it doesn't look like that. And so people are expecting one thing and they see another. And this is not exclusive to disabled people. Most discrimination doesn't look like that. You know, the idea of, the racists going around, oh, we don't like your kind here. You get the hell out of here. Those people are so unbelievably rare. And in general, they can't function in society. They have to be sequestered because those beliefs and the way that they react to people like that simply doesn't work. There are enough people that they have this problem with that exist that they have no authority over that it would explode their tiny little minds. No, what is significantly more common is condescension, disgust, and I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this to help you. You don't want to be here. With everybody looking at you, you see how everyone else here, we all look the same and you look so different. Everyone's going to be staring at you. They've got a really great restaurant for people like you right down the street. It's fantastic. I'll call you a cab. That's discrimination. That happens. Refusing to serve someone, refusing to let someone into your restaurant because they're in a wheelchair does not happen. Especially not in the States, but wherever this place was, I sincerely doubt it might happen a little bit more often in Europe just because, I don't know if you guys know this, but like Europe as a whole is a lot older than the US. I mean, they have buildings that are hundreds of years. They have buildings that are older than our country. And updating buildings that are older than our country to be handicap accessible is really hard. So I would assume in Europe, people with ambulatory issues and other things like that, physical disabilities that make it difficult to walk around where they need walkers or wheelchairs or things like that, I would assume they probably experience a little bit more than what happens in the States, simply because the vast majority of buildings that you're going into nowadays were built either after the ADA, when the Americans with Disabilities Act, after it went into effect, or have been remodeled since that happened. And either of those two things means that they can no longer be grandfathered into not being handicap accessible. So just about every building in the country is required by law to be handicap accessible. So, yeah. Interested to hear what you guys think. First of all, I actually don't know how much of kind of a disabled audience that I have. So if you do have any sort of disability, whether it is a temporary disability, whether it's a permanent disability, whether it's something that is very, very treatable and manageable, or whether it's something like me that it actually makes it impossible for you to just interact with the world. Let me know about situations where you have been discriminated against in the comments down below, and what actual discrimination looks like. Because like I said, it doesn't look like that. Or in the rare instance that it does look like that, people need to understand what real discrimination looks like, and people need to speak up against it. That's why it does still happen, is because nobody stops it. They just go, oh, well, that person's not yelling at the person in the wheelchair, so it's obvious that they're not discriminating against them. Or listen to what they're saying. Yeah, I bet, too, if I was in a wheelchair, that I would feel very self-conscious about everybody looking at me every time I had to go to the bathroom. So what they're saying makes sense. Nope. It's discrimination. It's illegal in the States, and I believe in most other I can't think of the word that I'm thinking of right now. Anyway, I believe in most of Europe it's illegal to discriminate against people with disabilities as well. I'm not 100% certain on that, so feel free to correct me in the comments. I don't understand disability law from other countries because, to be perfectly honest, understanding American disability law is a fucked up process. Anyway, I hope somebody gets something out of this. Like I said, it annoys me that this is what people think it's like being disabled, and it's not. It's all for me today. See you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.